Number 2.
This happened to me less than 2 years ago when I was 18 years old. I worked with a telephone cable company and had been there for about 2 months at this point. My job was to basically sit in the lobby of a building and try to convince the residents to switch to our company. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, since I live in a building as well, and I was used to seeing a Rogers or Bell worker in my lobby doing the same thing. So I saw my schedule, and I went to the building that I was assigned to that day. When I showed up, I found one of my other co-workers. I wasn't surprised because we always worked in pairs. So I sat down next to him. His name was Mark, and I settled in for the hour-long shift. As time passed and we handed out forms and spoke with the folks who lived there, most of them being senior citizens, I got thirsty. Since we were there for such a long time and didn't get lunch breaks, the company supplied us with snacks and water bottles. By the time we hit the 3-hour mark, I drank 2 water bottles and a bunch of granola bars. I told Mark that I really needed to use the bathroom, and I asked if he knew if there was one around the lobby. He told me to go down the hall to the landlord's office and ask him because he wasn't sure. I walked down the hall and I knocked on the office door. A tall man who looked to be in his mid-40s opened the door. He was wearing a dirty-looking shirt and he had a beard. I asked him nicely if there was a washroom I could use. He told me there wasn't one, but that the building was fairly new, so there were a lot of empty apartments and I could use one of them. I nodded and he led me to the stairs because there weren't any elevators. As we walked to the apartment, I kept getting this weird vibe from him, but I shook it off as me just being paranoid. We walked into the apartment and I turned around to thank him. When I did, I was startled by how close he was. I jumped a little, and he smiled, a really creepy smile. I moved back and said that I wouldn't be long while I walked to the bathroom. As I closed the bathroom door, I noticed that he didn't leave when I walked in. I again dismissed it as my paranoia, and I locked the door. After I was finished and I stepped out, I immediately felt uneasy, and I didn't know why. As I walked out into the living room to leave, there he was, just standing there, staring at me. I was confused because why was he still here? The little voice in my head said, maybe he waited until I was done so that he could lock up. I walked over and told him thank you, and I tried to awkwardly go around him, but he placed his hand on the door, blocking my way. It was then it hit me that I was in an empty apartment with a complete stranger. I looked up confused, as if to say, what the hell are you doing? He smiled again and leaned over to me and said something that made me sick to my stomach.
I've never been with a black girl before.
And he placed a hand on my shoulder. I almost fainted from how fast my heart was beating. I mean, who says something like that? I'm only 5'2" and 110 pounds, so if this man wanted to, he could do some serious damage. I tried to get out of his grip on my shoulder, but he only tightened it. I said I wasn't interested in what I was hoping was a firm voice, and he shoved me back hard. I nearly fell on my ass, but quickly balanced myself, and I made a lot of space between us and told him to please let me go. That's when he charged at me, and I ran to the other side of the living room, and then through the kitchen, which led back to the front door. When I got there, I began to unlock it. I felt a sharp tug at my hair, and I cried out in pain. Thankfully, I got the door open, and I yelled for help, and with all the strength I could muster, I threw my foot back and hit him where I hoped was the groin. I heard him yell, and he loosened his grip, finally, and I stumbled out. I began sprinting like hell. I got back to the lobby and I screamed for Mark to call the police. Without question, he took me and ushered me into his car. We sat there while we called 911. and he tried to comfort me after telling him what had happened, and after repeating it to the dispatcher, we waited. The police finally arrived and I gave my statement, and obviously they searched the building. Unfortunately, he was long gone, and the worst part is, he's still out there, and he hasn't been caught. Number 1. We really didn't have a lot of money growing up, so we lived in one of those cheap apartments on the SeaTac Strip. There was a lot of prostitution there, so there were a lot of weird men around, and we all knew about the killings. We didn't leave the apartment much unless we had to. My mother worked at a bar, so she was gone a lot of the night. She would drive me to my aunt's house, which was in a nice part of Seattle, and she felt safer with me being there. I didn't understand what was going on at the time because I was so young, but now that I'm older, I'm glad that I was in the car that day. It was just a normal day, like any other, only the night before, the car was having some troubles, and my mother was worried that the car might break down. It was a cheap piece of crap that my mother got from my grandfather, and to make matters worse, it was raining out. We stopped at a cafe because we had some time before she had to drop me off, and she had a little extra money that my father had given her to help us. We sat next to the window, and I had ordered eggs and pancakes. My mother ordered bacon, eggs, and hash browns. She had such a big smile on her face, and I think it's because we were eating actual food instead of extra stuff she was able to get from the bar or TV dinners. When we were done, we paid and left. We go into our shitty car, and it took a couple of minutes to start. When we pulled out, I remember taking a right. After a while, I remember my mother asking herself how long that truck had been behind us. Being the curious child I was, I got on my knees on my booster seat, and I peeked over the back seat. My mother noticed that I wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and she got mad. She pulled over to the side of the road and got out to buckle me back in. The truck pulled up behind my mum, and a man got out. He said he was following her because he saw something hanging out of the trunk or something, and he tried to signal my mother to pull over. She walked past my door and to the back of the car to take a look, and the man, he got closer to her. He tried striking up a conversation as my mother was looking for what he was talking about. He talked about the weather briefly, but then asked her if she was afraid to be alone out here because of the killings that had terrorized the area. My mum told me later on that the hair on her skin rose up needlepoint, and his question sent shivers down her spine. She turned around to look at him, and he walked closer, slowly, trying to talk to my mother. I was still not buckled and wanted to see what was going on, so 4-year-old me got out of the car and walked over to my mother. His eyes were on me the whole time, so I stepped behind my mother, afraid now. He stopped trying to make conversation with my mother and apologized for possibly scaring her. He turned around and walked back to his truck. My mother hurried me back into the car, and she buckled me in. She locked all the locks and tried starting the car. The car wouldn't start, and my mum, she started to cry. She was so scared, and that terrified me. We heard the man's truck door close, and my mum, she started crying even more, almost screaming. The car, it finally started. She slammed the stick into gear, and we tore out of there. A couple of years later, we ended up moving in with my aunt. We were watching TV, and the news was on, talking about the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, explaining that he was caught. My mother dropped her drink, and she just started crying. She started yelling that it was him, and that this was the man who followed us. And I just remember it clicking in my mind what happened. My mother and I, we met the Green River Killer. G'day mates, it's B-Buster here. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video guys. And you know, as soon as that girl went into that bathroom, I just couldn't help thinking, you're in trouble now. Get it? You're in trouble? Thanks again to the Hive members that bravely shared this story for us all here. And I hope you guys are doing really well. For the chance to have your story feature in a video, you can send your story to my email, which is in the description below. And as always guys, keep them coming as this channel relies upon your stories to continue. Also, please do me a favor and just state in your email what your story is about in the description, and also provide me with a short written statement of consent just so that I can be above board with everything. Please also remember to tell me in the email if you would like to remain anonymous, and please change any names if you don't want particular names to be shared. As always guys, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for updates throughout the week. You can also catch me on my second channel, all of which have links in the description below. Thanks again for always tuning in, for all the love and support, and I'll see you mates in the next one.